before the Elder Scrolls, before World of Warcraft, before the internet, before games became a billion-dollar industry, there was darkness. And then there was midnight.
There was a time, before the AAA billion-dollar computer games business we know today, when an entire world could fit inside a cassette tape. We had a world with mountains, forests, castles, and dark, frozen lands. A world called Midnight. And the game, The Lords of Midnight. The first epic game created by the late, great Mike Singleton for the 48K ZX Spectrum. For some of you watching this, those names will bring back fond memories. Maybe you remember sitting in front of your Spectrum. Maybe you remember those, for our eyes at the time anyway. Wondrous, amazing graphics. And maybe, like me, you remember wondering just how a game that big could possibly fit inside a mere Spectrum. But if you're younger and you've never heard of the Lords of Midnight, well, then welcome to Midnight. This is a let's play of a reimagining of one of the most ambitious computer games of the 1980s. A game created by one man, Mike Singleton. And today we're going to find out what happens when that world is brought into the modern era. Released in 1984 by Beyond Software, The Lords of Midnight was unlike anything else at the time. It was a world locked in endless winter by evil Witch King Doomdark, and the player's task was to stop him. And you could explore, you could recruit allies, raise armies. Ultimately, you had to fight Doomdark's forces. Or you could take a handful of characters deep into enemy territory and attempt something much more dangerous. Destroy Doomdark's Ice Crown. And you could combine all of those approaches that I just spoke about. The game gave you the world and then allowed you to create the story. And behind that world was Mike Singleton. Before becoming a games programmer, he was an English teacher. He started with a few smaller programs for the ZX81 and then the Spectrum. And interestingly, the game originally had a different name. It was called The Lords of Atlantis, but thankfully, Beyond changed his mind and the world of Midnight was born. So now, more than 40 years later, we're going to go back. This time, though, through the Frozen Empire and the War of the Solstice, which is a modern reimagining of the game that's been developed by Andrew Smart with music, which is fantastic, by Wayne Britcliffe. So, whether you're returning to a world you remember from the 1980s or you're discovering it for the first time, welcome to Midnight. And let's see what we've got ourselves into. So, here we are. I hope you like that little intro we had there. A little bit of background about the game. So, I'm going to disable the guidance. We can come back to that later. And so, here you can see the War of the Solstice. This is the 3D reimagining of the Lords of Midnight. As you can see, I think you'll agree, it looks amazing. So, if you've never played the game before, as was detailed in the opening of the video, You're in the land of midnight, which has been cast into eternal winter by the evil Witch King Doomdark. And you start with 4 characters. As you can see here, we have Luxor, the Moon Prince, and the other characters that are available to you at the beginning of the game. Let me just put them onto the map. Here you go. So we have Morkin, which is Luxor's son. We have Corleth, the Fae, and the Fae are pretty much the elves of the story. And then we have Rawthron, the Wise. And at the beginning of the game, you start at the Tower of the Moon. And so we just click on one of the characters. So we're going to go back to being Luxor. And just bear with me. I've played this game quite a number of times, but I haven't played it for a while, so some of the controls might be a bit foggy in my old brain. So here we are. Luxor the Moon Prince. He stands at the Tower of the Moon, looking north to the Downs of Shadows. So the game's very straightforward. You have the cursor keys to look around, and here you can see the graphics are absolutely amazing. And there are tactics to this game. I'm not going to go too deeply into them, but my old tactic, when I first played the game, I couldn't really work out what to do, so I just used to wander around, not really accomplish much. And then Crash Magazine back in the day, I remember when it came out, and then gave me a bit more of an idea what I needed to do. I could never get my head around the more tactical strategy based game, where it was more of a war game than an adventure game. I went for the adventure game angle, and in the adventure game, you have to destroy the Ice Crown. Now the Ice Crown is the source of Doomdark's power, but we'll get more into that as we develop the story. So what I want to try to do in this Let's Play, I want to try to do something that I've never done before, and that is to hold, maybe not the Plains of Blood, which, if you've played the game, they're very familiar to you. If you haven't played the game, it's the first point at which you come into contact with Doomdark's armies, and it's an incredibly tough strategy to try and win the game. I always try to fall back a lot further south, where you have a lot more help, and you can pick off Doomdark's armies as they come through. So what I'm going to try and do is hold somewhere in the central part of the map, recruit as many of the lords as we can. We'll send Morking also on his quest further north up the map, and then we'll see what we can see. So let's start with Luxor. So as you can see, at the Tower of the Moon, and what I normally do with Luxor is head south. As you can see, if we look southeast, we've got we've got dragons in our way, so we can avoid those by heading southwest, and then we can turn back south, head through the Forest of Shadows, and there we have some little creatures. These are called Skullcrin, and when you're a solo lord, it's probably best to avoid any of the creatures. The game back in the day, it had a nasty habit of killing you quite quickly, pretty severe. So we'll go around those, and then as you can see, all of a sudden it's turned dark. So this game, it's a turn-based game. So you move your characters during the day, and then when it turns to dark, Doom Dark, the computer opponent gets to move his characters. So Luxor's moves are finished for the day. So we select, and then it's actually easier. Press the character button here, and you can see it along here. So Luxor has a little blue circle, which means he's at night, so his moves for the day have finished. So then we'll move on to the next character, which is Morkin. And again, all the characters start at the Tower of the Moon. And actually, if we select the map, you can see. So the map is revealed as you move further into the game. So at the moment, all we can see is where our characters are. And here you can see we have Orlith, Rothron, Morkin, and Luxor. He moved a little bit further south. So let's go back to Morkin. And now we know that Doomdark's Citadel is in the north, and the Ice Crown is in the north. So we really want to be heading north somewhere. But because I've played this game a few times, I know that in the northwest here somewhere, or is it north? I think it's in the northwest. There should be. There he is. So we can look, and then we can think, and it tells you that less than 4 hours of the day remain. Morkin is utterly invigorated. The ice sphere is cold, and Morkin is utterly bold and is carrying nothing. So a couple of things to explain here. So the ice sphere is what emanates from the Ice Crown. And the closer you get to the source of the ice sphere, the crown, the further north you go, the colder the ice sphere becomes. And it has the ability to instill fear into the characters. However, because Morkin is half Fae and half human, he has a unique ability to repel the ice sphere. So that's why he's sent on the quest to the north to try and destroy it. And utterly bold. So this fear level increases and decreases due to certain factors which we'll get to. But if we continue, he thinks again. So if we look, you can see we have the Lord of Shadows there. So think, and then we can see character, army, battle, place. Let's click on place. In the Forest of Shadows stands Morkin. Well, we know that. And army, he commands no army. Character, there we go. So to the northeast of the Forest of Shadows stands the Lord of Shadows. So these are characters that you see throughout the game, and you have the ability to recruit them to your cause. Now, in order to recruit them, we have to go back to the look screen, and you have to actually move into the same screen, the same location as the character you want to recruit. So let's move forward, and then you can see here we have the approach icon up here. So if we click approach, there you go. We now have control of the Lord of Shadows. If you see the approach icon in the game, then that means that you automatically are able to recruit the person. There are certain characters that can only recruit certain other characters. Fae, recruit Fae, men, or the free, as they're called in the game, can recruit other free characters. Rothron, who's the wise in the game, can pretty much recruit anybody, so he's a very useful character. So my tactic is usually to keep the Lord of Shadows close with Morkin, and he can be his protector. By the way, sound effects and the music to the game are absolutely fantastic. Wayne Britcliffe, I believe, was the composer of the music. Andrew Smart was the creator of the game, or the programmer of the reimagining of the game. So there'll be links in the description underneath, so you can click and download the game and find out more about it at the Frozen Empire website. But yeah, it's so atmospheric. One of the things about the original game, absolutely loved it, but there was no sound. I think the game was so vast that to actually include any sound was just beyond the limits of the spectrum of back in the day. So one of the things I love about this game is not only the improvement in graphics. The game's essentially the same, but the graphics, as you can see, fantastic. But the atmospheric music and sound effects just add an extra dimension to the game, which is absolutely fantastic. So back to the game. So the Lord of Shadows. So if we think, you can see here that he's on foot. So the 4 characters that you control from the start are on horseback. They can lose their horses, and then you can find horses again. But Lord of Shadows always starts on foot. So when the characters are on foot, they move at a slower pace, so you don't get as far during the day. So what I usually do is, let's go back to Morkin. He's still got 1 or 2 moves left, I believe. So let's see how far north we can go. I think we can probably go 1 more move, and then it's night. So we'll go back and select Shadows. And there you can see there's Morkin ahead of us, and he's on horseback. So we'll move into the same location, and then we'll just rest, because when Lord of Shadows starts the game, for some reason he's slightly tired. In fact, if we think, let's have a look. Yeah, so 6 hours of the day remain for Lord of Shadows. So each character, I think, gets 7 hours of movement. So we've only moved one square, so he's still got 6 remaining, but he's quite tired. He always starts tired, as I said. I think the lore of the game is that he's probably been fighting Doomdark's armies. So the Ice Sphere is cold, but Shadows is afraid. So Shadows is a character that's not inherently brave, and he's carrying nothing. So what we'll do with him, as he's quite tired and he's in the same location, he has an army as well, by the way, so let's just check. So he commands 1,000 warriors, but no riders, so all of his men that are not on horseback. But what we can do is we can rest, and if we rest, that means he uses up the remaining of his hours to replenish his energy. So let's rest. So he's now at night, but he's on the same location square as Morkin, so he'll keep him safe. So the next one we have is Corlith the Fae. So as I said, the Fae are pretty much the elves of the story. And by the way, if you're getting a hint of a similarity to the Lord of the Rings, I think that was pretty much intentional by Mike Singleton, the author. He was inspired by the Lord of the Rings. You know, we have a Doomdark the Witch King, the evil Dark Lord. We have Morkin on his quest to destroy the ring, to destroy the Ice Crown. And then we have Luxor, his father. He's a kind of Aragorn figure. He can rally the lords into battle. So Corlith the Fae is like the elf of the story, so he can recruit other elves. He can also recruit a lot of the Fae as well. He has a lot of respect within the game. So what I try to do with Corlith, there is another Fae character in the far north, and you have to get to him really quickly before Doomdark does. And most of the Fae, in fact I think probably all of the Fae, they hang out, or their homes are in the forest. So the Fae characters are very speedy in forests, and there's one Fae in the far north And what I try to do is get there as quickly as I can with Corlith, and if I'm lucky, can get there before Doomdark does, and we can recruit him, and then we can head back south, or we can head over to the east where there are more Fae. So let's try. We're going to move northeast. So when you move a character northeast, I think they take up 1.5 of the movement that's available to them. So north, south, east, west is one movement, and if you go to the northeast, southwest, southeast, etc., it's 1.5. But we'll head northeast through the forest, and then we come to the mountains. So if we have a quick check of the map, you can see that Corlith is here. And we want to be somewhere, I think, probably up in this direction. So we need to, I think, turn north again. But this is one of the problems in the game. You see, it's there. If we think, what is it? Look, yeah. Look again, maybe. Yeah, you can see we have some giants there. Ice trolls, I think they may be. We don't really want to go that way. So if we go northeast again. And as you can see, even though we're in the mountains, you can give a description of what's the other side of the mountain. So we're in the mountains of shadows, looking northeast to the Lith of blood. So when we're in the mountains, can't travel very far, obviously. It's a lot slower pace than if you're on the plains or for the Fae in the forests. So actually, if we can head one more northeast, we're at the Lith blood. So the Liths are ancient standing stones, and in this game you have the ability to seek at any location. Now when you seek at a Lith, you either find nothing if it's been if somebody, one of the characters, has seeked there before, or you find something positive. As far as I remember, there's no negative side to seeking at a Lith. So if we seek here, you can see we found the waters of life, which fill him with vigor. So basically a magic potion that restores your energy. Now with Corlith, he has an ability to hide and unhide. So because he's moving into enemy territory, we're going to take cover and hide for the day. That means that even if Doomdark's armies are in the same vicinity, they won't find him because he's hidden. So let's go back to select. So you can see here, Shadows is at night, Luxor is at night, Morkin is at night, Corlith is at night, and as you can see, his character's a little bit faded. That means he's hidden. So we have one more, which is Rothron the Wise. So again, at the Tower of the Moon. So just go back to the map. So we have Luxor heading in a southern direction. Corlith, who's hidden, but he's heading sort of northeast. Morkin's heading north. So with Rothron, we're going to head east. So the Wise are also very speedy through the forests. So we'll just keep heading east as far as we can. And here you can see the horses. So if we just click on the think icon, you can see that this is Rothron. He already has a horse, so there's no need to seek in the location. We'll go back to look, and here over just to the southeast you can see another Lith. So what we're going to try to do is head to the Lith. As you can see here, we're on the Plains of Blood, looking southeast to the Lith of the Moon. So the Plains of Blood, as I explained, this is going to be a big part of our strategy. We're going to try and hold as close to these Plains of Blood as we can. but we'll come back to that strategy in a moment. So let's go to the list and seek. So on this occasion, he has found the sword Wolf Slayer, and he picks it up. So if you have a sword, this helps you against the creatures that you find when you're traveling throughout the land of midnight. So the Wolf Slayer is particularly proficient against wolves, strangely enough. But also I think any of the other creatures, it does a pretty good job. So let's look. As you can see, pretty dark. And if we think, it tells us that it's night. And Rothron is very invigorated. The ice sphere is mild. So the wires have an ability to repel the ice sphere. He's utterly bold, and he has with him the sword Wolfslayer. Back in the day when I played this game, I absolutely loved the font that the game used. Just gave it that character, that feeling that you were really immersed in this fantastic, deep story. So we'll need to go back to look, and again, Rothron, because he's wise, he has the ability to hide as well. So we're going to hide him for the evening. For the night, let's go back to the look page. Let's look at the map. And here we can see. So let's just zoom out a bit. Luxor, Morkin, and Shadows. Rothron is hiding here, and Koreth is hiding here. So at the end, when all of your characters have used up their movement for the day, we click the night icon. So when you click the night icon, you can see here, night has fallen and the foul are abroad. One day passed since the war of the Solstice began. So during the night, this is when Doomdark, your enemy, the Witch King, the computer, basically, this is when he takes his moves. And then to get through this screen, we click on Dawn, and then the second day starts. But what I think I'll do, I think I'll end the first video here. We've had an introduction to the game, and we've played the first day playthrough. We'll go back to the map to see where everyone is. And I hope you've enjoyed it so far. So please, if you do, tune in for episode 2, when we'll get a little bit more into the tactics, a bit more of the lore of the game, and the background of some of the characters and what we intend to do. So that's it for episode 1, and hopefully I'll see you in episode 2.